Marty St. Louis took great care of his rotator cuff. So he was pictured doing this Powell raise, which is only one part of your rotator cuff. There are several other parts, including what gets targeted inside of your shoulder blade with the external rotator. That can also be targeted with something like a Cuban press, which was very common to see with Marty's training partners. But to complete the protection and strength of your rotator cuff, you would need to add exercises like the trap 3 raise, either single arm or double, while also training a shortened range with something like a face pull. Your rotator cuff is extremely crucial for stabilization of the shoulder, providing you the strength to do other traditional presses and or pulls. When I hit basic strength standards on these, not only did my tendency to sleep on the wrong side of the bed go away, my shot power also got faster with less effort. So if you want to be like Marty and all these other NHLers, definitely train your rotator cuff. Also, if you want to train like Marty, ATG for Hockey has a MSL challenge that you can check out below. Now here's a much deeper dive into the basic 4 rotator cuff exercises I use for myself and my hockey players. And it was very interesting to see the St. Louis photo of that Powell raise where he was at the edge of a bench, and then he was pictured having the dumbbell stopped right about here. But that was a sign that he was still working on exactly that specific Powell raise. You can do that, by the way, at multiple different angles. Actually, there was a Charles Poliquin quote that mentioned that not only is the shoulder a smart joint, which means that it adapts with many different angles and many different stimuluses. There's not one wrong way to do a Powell raise as long as you keep the elbow straight. You can do it at a 15, 30, 45, etc. incline. There are also 7 deltoids that could be strengthened from all of those different positions. So the upper body, you have 2 things. You have the upper body adapting with multiple different angles and multiple different stimulus. If you believe the upper body smart, lower body stupid theory, which I do, doing the rotator cuff work here at the multiple different angles, that was very crucial for me to progress things like my, once again, my presses, like what you have with a full range dip, which that would help increase your speed, because with the dip, you're extending your arm swing. The better that you get your upper body mechanics and strength, you get a 10 to 15% increase in speed. And then the rotator cuff stability also allows you to get better at your pull-ups or your all your other pulls. And then lat strength, which you would get trained all types of pulls. Lat strength is correlated with shot speed. So the better you get at your pulls, the harder that your shot gets as a correlation. Not all the time is it provable. Like Bedard can do 14 pull-ups, whereas Pedersen doesn't do as many. And then Bedard has both have just as hard of a shot, even though one is clearly stronger in an exercise compared to the other. But that's a little different subject about training specific ability. Either way, working the rotator cuff work for me helped, because I wasn't born genetically with, super strong shoulders or even a great shot. Like I had to train that all myself. And even the upper back, I wouldn't say my posture was the greatest, coming from a family who lived in the corporate job environment. Nothing wrong with that. It's just what it was. This is how you train your way out of things like that. So that was the Powell raise. And then here's another exercise that focuses on the straightening of the arm that works the shoulder. So I like to pair them up together like this. Powell raise and trap 3 raise, for me, train something very similar. Again, like I said earlier, they're different with the upper body smart, lower body stupid formula. Also, they are distinctly different exercises. But I pair them together as like a straight arm shoulder work. And then with face pull and rotator, I pair them together as bent arm shoulder rotator cuff work. Those are kind of my base 4. Obviously, I have variations like what you have with the Cuban press or raise, and then there's other variations, like you can be side lying on the bench and then doing your rotator cuff that way. I actually should work on that a lot more. But just to showcase the rest of them, trap 3 raise right here. From an angle like this, it doesn't look like it. All it does is it looks like it's going in front of you right here, right? But I assure you, when you add the incline bench, it makes it much harder. The difference with this compared to the Powell raise is that it also targets your lower trap muscle, which is very hard to train in some other exercises. You wouldn't be able to train it with the Powell raise, for instance. That just isolates the shoulder. Now, what I showed earlier with the single arm trap 3 raise, that is isolating of the shoulder that way. So whereas this variation and a back extension variation would target the lower traps a lot more with the back, say if you have back pain, the shoulder trap 3 variation just isolates the shoulder. The cable variation of the trap 3, or even if you have single arm right here at the edge of a bench or a wall, that would isolate the shoulder and the rotator cuff more. Covering the bent arm rotator cuff work, classic external rotator. This is the opposition of a throw, and generally speaking, the stronger in the opposing motion that you are, it is very much easier to get stronger going the way that you're intending. So in this case, I'm focusing on that part, which if you went for a throw, that's that motion. And if you overwork this motion and don't work enough that motion, you're setting yourself up for possible tweaks or injuries. Obviously, throwing is not the same as shooting, but I will assure you that constantly, before I did all of this, it was very easy for me to end up sleeping on the wrong side of bed after my practices or just the long ice sessions that I had. When I did this, along with the other rotator cuff work, that is when the pain went away. I shouldn't say pain because it was more like soreness, but yeah, I never had like a severe shoulder injury or anything like that, but I know that this stuff works very well, which I'll explain the final tip with the face pull. Actually, we'll get into the standards there. Face pulls are as basic and essential as they get, and helps out a lot with your posture. I like to think of these and all other variations of the face pull as the short range version of the external rotator, because with the external rotator, you have no tension up here, but then as it lowers, you get even more and more tension, and then you get a stretch that you have to strengthen through. Whereas right here, opposite motion, imagine like I have my elbows back like I'm holding the dumbbell. Barely any tension right here, but once I pull it back, it gets harder and harder and harder. You're squeezing the muscle instead of stretching the muscle. And what that allows you to do is create a mind-muscle connection. And that way, you tell your body that you can go from here to out here. You get this ability with your shoulder blades. That way you end up improving your posture, which is debatable as to if you need that or not with hockey, as if you actually take a closer look at them, they round themselves all the time, especially when they're like stick handling and looking down at the play, or even like looking at their next play. Their chest is often down and then their shoulders go forward. That creates a mechanical advantage for shooting and all that. But I would say you're training your shoulder ability here. If you want more stability with your shoulder, or if you're seeking something like that, that is where exercises like the 4 that we just showcased here, that is where they come in. So if you're sleeping on the wrong side of the bed like I was, or you actually have a shoulder injury, which I've helped out a few of my clients with, then doing these exercises will then help you to go out there. It's not training the specific position. If you're going to train this, do your stick handling and everything like that. Do your shooting, do your skating. Focus on the mechanics there, and then like you want to train the integrity of your shoulder. You want to train the ability that your shoulder can do things. The more ability that your shoulder can do, the better off you are when you do go into more demanding things. So that's all why to train your rotator cuff. Also, if you're trying to get a better arm swing or get better upper body mechanics, I know I just contradicted myself there, but like I hinted at earlier with the presses and pulls, if you want to get better at those, but your shoulder can't handle the presses, or you get like a little pinch here and there with your dips, or you can't get exactly full range with those, I got to make a separate video on that. You can get better at those. You can also have your bench presses increase without even working on them, because you're getting stronger at the rotator cuff exercises. That's exactly what happened to me. I didn't bench for a while. I would say like heavy for like a solid year and a half or so. But the That's not to say that you don't want to do that. You don't want to bench ever, because I definitely should have benched during that time to increase my bench. But instead of benching every day, which has actually been looked at to not be super safe for the shoulders, you can do pulls every day, but presses are a little tougher, especially when you're going heavier. That is a lot tougher on the shoulder, and the way that you compensate for that is by doing other work, which you have with your rotator cuff. To close the gap on this video, I mentioned that we have standards for exactly all this. Actually, the three with the external rotator, Powell raise, and trap 3 raise, those are all pretty much the same. Right around 10% of your body weight is where you're, I have a coach who says, allowed to live. I don't want to use those words because I want everyone to be able to access some like form of ability, especially as a hockey player. It's much more important to be stronger in the exercise and not just go for something basic, which everyone can do. You want to be better than that. So go for instead 15% of your body weight or 10% of your 1RM bench press. The Powell standards were like 9.8% of your 1RM bench. And then actually in the original standards, the Powell raise was much higher than that. I think it was at like 12% of your bench press, and your trap 3 was something lower than 9.8%, because that's the hardest one by far. Face pull is about half of your body weight, but the thing to be careful with that is it's a cable machine, and most cables have different numbers and different tension points on the machine, so it's not equatable cable to cable. The weights are not exactly the same between them all, and that's just from constant testing between cables and hearing that from other coaches as well. Different cable machines are different, and then they're tweaked a little bit differently. It's kind of the same thing with some dumbbells, but their dumbbells are much more easy to have across the board, as like, okay, this is specifically 25 pounds. This is specifically a 45-pound barbell. Like, that's easier to, or kilos, like if you want to get the translation to metric there, that's much easier to gap across the weights. Whereas that's the only reason why the face pull is the different standard compared to the other 4. Anyway, yeah, that was very cool to see with the Marty St. Louis doing the Powell raise, and then a bunch of the other NHLers that his trainer had. There's videos of them doing Cuban raises, so that was very cool to see. That Ben Prentice guy is actually a Powell disciple, which is another reason why I'd say Marty and all the other NHLers that he's have had huge success. So anyway, that's rotator cuff work, the success that Marty St. Louis had, and then that's also part of the MSL challenge. There's a specific day that blasts your rotator cuff, literally, and that's all included in the HEG for Hockey app. You just have to scroll over to MSL challenge, and then you'll see it right there, along with sled work, squat work, just the whole 9 yards that Marty did, and switching over in a way, adapting it into the HEG way a little bit with the slightly longer ranges, things like that. Even though clearly he had success doing his own training, but adapted under the HEG lens. And now anybody can do it. Even if you're not a hockey player, I encourage you to try the MSL challenge, because we, as classic HEG folk, looked up to him with that Nordic that we saw from one of Ben's popular videos. That was what brought me onto him, and we're like, hey, that's the best form of a Nordic that we've ever seen, so we want to copy exactly how he did it. Go try it out in that program there. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope this helps, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching.